Hey guys, it's Matt here, and today I'm doing another episode of Matt Rants, and this is not a drill. Literally, I dropped every other video I was working on other Matt Rants, working on some new episodes of stuff that hasn't been on the channel for a while, and that just got thrown out the window because of this news that I ended up seeing around 12:30 in the morning. I had stuff that I was working on for other channels. I'm going to talk about this as well on Keikaku Corner, a podcast that we have over at Those Guys on the Radio YouTube channel, but that is getting pushed back for a day. On our TG Productions YouTube channel, I have a bunch of other stuff that was going to come out that still is coming out the same day that this is coming out, but they're getting done at the last minute because of this piece of news that I actually found out through Facebook. Yes, Facebook. They're stealing our data, and also they're showing us that apparently Sony is coming out with a PlayStation Classic. What? Okay. Let me tell you guys why I'm a little bit confused here. The reason why is because I knew, obviously, Sony's working with its own materials. Obviously, Sony can emulate its own stuff on the PS3, so of course they could come out with a PlayStation Classic themselves. I just didn't know when Sony was going to pull the trigger. Now, it has been years since the NES Classic came out. It might not seem like it because I just got mine this past year, and I'm sure some of you guys might have as well with the reissues of 2018 versions, but they have been out for about like 2 years thus far, and of course with the SNES Classic as well. Both have clearly proven to be successful for Nintendo. Also, well, technically not Sega, but it was at Games working with Sega, at least licensing, the Sega Genesis from them and releasing the Sega Genesis Mini. There's been a bunch of those reissued throughout the years since 2014, I'm going to say. So it's not like those haven't existed either, but with the success specifically, I would argue, of the NES Classic Edition and the SNES Classic Edition, especially with fans like us, we have a PlayStation 1 Mini coming out. I thought this was, what I thought this was? Since I saw this on Facebook, because even though it was from PlayStation's official page, it had the logo, but I didn't click on it, just said PlayStation. I thought, I have an odd feeling that an ad is being targeted to me for a Raspberry Pi that someone's trying to pass off as an actual PS1. That's happened in the past, actually, where I've seen ads for Super Nintendo, quote unquote, the thousands of games loaded onto it. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is just a Raspberry Pi. And people in the comments, some of them are like, every game? And whoever made the, post to put the ads and everything was like, every game. It becomes so dumb. I thought it was one of those situations because the way the link was even shown, it was just jumbled and garbled weirdly. And then all of a sudden I Googled it and it was like, no, this is on, I'm gonna have by the way, if you're wondering, I'm gonna have the article in the description box down below, but this is directly from PlayStation's website, from Sony's website, so this is 100% legit. So it's gonna come with 20 preloaded games. The price right now is $100. And another thing too, I do think we need to see so far, they've only announced a few games. They've announced Final Fantasy VII, Jumping Flash, Ridge Racer Type 4, Tekken 3, and Wild Arms. Yes, those are the only games that they've talked about just far. Before we get into whether or not those are worth it or not, I do want to mention one thing. So some people have been saying that the price isn't worth it for only 20 games. And I think people need to understand, as much as I love Super Nintendo, I love it a lot, and I enjoy the NES as well, don't get me wrong, I just didn't grow up with it. The NES came with 30 games, to be fair, but then the SNES came with 19 games. Technically, it was 19 and technically 20 with Star Fox, or Star Fox 2, or was it 19 including Star Fox 2? I forgot. But what does matter is, when we get into the PS1 here, and I've seen this online, Dreamcast Guy was talking about it on his Twitter, love his channel, you should definitely check him out if you like my stuff. He was talking about the fact that, PS1 was super RPG heavy. And he didn't need to say that to have us all, remember that if you don't know. But it's RPG heavy. So if you pick other RPGs, not just Final Fantasy VII, if we get maybe Final Fantasy VIII, if we get other RPGs as well, then I would argue that this system, I hope that we don't get, even though I'm not saying there aren't fans of racing games and stuff like that, but if we get games like Spyro the Dragon, like Crash Bandicoot, games that alone, and I hate bringing up the price of games on any of the videos that I do on the channel because I don't want to raise them in any way, but I'll say that from what I've seen online, the price for Spyro, the price for Crash, a bunch of different ones are around $20 a piece. I hope they haven't gone up, and I really hope they've gone down, and I hope that they stay there even after I've said what I've said. But the point is that I've seen them for around 20 each. So if they have even one Crash and then Spyro, I mean, heck, even looking at some of these games, I'll look up the price right now as we're talking about them just to look at the value of this system, because when you look at something like the NES and the SNES, it's very clear to know, oh, there's 19 games, clearly that $60 is worth it, or that $80 is worth it. I mean, of course, 30 for the NES, of course, the $60 was worth it. Here, though, for $100, at this point, I do feel like unless they're a bunch of really common $5 games, even with Final Fantasy VII, from what I remember, that one's around maybe like $10. So okay, that's one of your 20 games. But here's the thing: if each and every one does end up being $10 a peep, let's just say $10 a piece. It's very late when I'm recording this. $10 a piece. That's still $200. So you're still saving money there, and you don't have to buy a PlayStation 1, which I can admit, even though I love my baby, it's looking at me right now on the shelf with all my consoles. I love you, but it still is kind of old and temperamental. So it's giving me a death glare. But either way, it works just fine, but it can have some issues here and there, and also trying to find the right chords out of my stack of chords that I have for the other consoles that I have. Getting a PS1 Classic, especially for the opportunity, if it can be modded in some way or another, and we can add more games onto it, that would be really awesome. It could definitely, just like the NES and SNES Classic Edition, really make someone have, maybe not the entire library, don't know how big the hard drive space is going to be on the PS1 Classic Edition, but I will say, and actually that's the thing, getting back to what I originally said, the whole, I didn't think that Sony would be pulling the trigger on this, at least within the first 2 or 3 years, is because of the fact that PS1 games, I know that they're not as large as obviously, PS4 games or even PS3 games, but at the same time, though, with how cheap it was to make an NES Classic Edition, an SNES Classic Edition, you have to think about how super duper 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 tiny these games are versus games that are now going to be, a couple hundred megabytes a pop. Yes, I understand physical media, storage, media, it's getting cheaper and cheaper, don't get me wrong, but I do wonder how, what kind of wholesale, what kind of money's being put into this for them to get these. I know it's going to sell like hotcakes, believe you me, I'm considering purchasing one right now, even though there isn't a buy link up just yet, but when there will be, I might swoop in there and get one. It really all depends on, like I mentioned earlier, the rarity of the games that are on it. So, because with the SNES Classic Edition, I think being able to have Earthbound on that, immediately, I snapped my fingers. I was like, this needs to be in my collection one day, because not only are we, supporting Nintendo, but also I get the chance to play Earthbound. Even though it's emulation, again, it's from Nintendo's own, they have the source code and everything, so even though it's emulation, it's still directly from the source. When it came to Earthbound, other games like Mega Man 2 on the NES, and some other ones that, aren't coming to mind right now, that arguably, even something like Castlevania can be like $20, $25 loose cart. So, in my opinion, when you look at Castlevania and a bunch of other games on those systems as well, I do think, like I mentioned earlier, I do think they pay for themselves. Now, while I'm going to be looking up the prices of some of these games for the PS1 Classic that they've announced thus far, and of course when they announce more, I'll be doing more Matt Rants about those. My problem is, and this is something that's everyone's problem, because damn it, it should be, there is no AC power adapter included. Now, do I have one personally lying around somewhere? I probably have one. Probably is the right voltage, and it'll probably fit. Heck, funnily enough, if my NES or SNES Classic Edition one works with it, that'd be hilarious. So I probably have one lying around. But that's a bit different than HDMI, which, by the way, would like to note this does HDMI, so potentially we're getting some of our favorite games from the past upscaled in a good way. So when I see that there's no AC adapter included, that's much different than an HDMI cable, which, I'm sure they're going to send a Sony HDMI cable branded of Sony or PlayStation or something like that. But frankly, I'd rather it be the reverse. I'd rather it be, do not include the HDMI cable, assume that someone has it for something or another, assume that with their setup they can easily just unplug an HDMI from the back of their cable box, like I do sometimes, and put that into their, PS4, whatever console they're using it for, or in my case as a YouTuber, game capture stuff. I would rather them assume that than not send a power brick or an AC adapter of some kind, because to me, if for some reason nothing that I have is compatible, or I'm worried that it might short it out or something like that, now I have to buy are they going to sell an AC adapter separately, or are they going to just say, because if they say, oh, the same one can be used, like the one that's used on your PS4, your PS3, again, I have that, but it shouldn't have to be on you to have that. When it comes to HDMIs, no matter what HDMI cable specifically, no matter what you buy nowadays, at least from what I've seen, it seems like everyone just gives you HDMI cables. Like they are literally less, I mean, I'm sure they're very cheap to produce, but it feels like at this point, like they are worth less than pennies, because I'm sure you might know pennies actually cost more than a penny to produce. So it seems like HDMI cables are worth less than pennies. Like the what's it called? The price on HDMI cables, they've just declined because there's too much. There's not enough demand. Actually, there is enough demand, but man, do I get every time I get a new console, just get one thrown at me of any type. So I feel like Sony really should have thought about that and thought, you know what? Let's actually give them a power brick, because they're going to sell that to me separately. I might not want to buy this just on principle, despite the fact that they might have some games that I would really want to enjoy either for the first time or that I've enjoyed in the past. Heck, if they have Tomba technically on this, I don't know if it's Tomba or Toomba, tell me what you think about it in the comment section down below, but if they have Tomba on this and Klonoa, oh my god. Because it's funny too, when it comes to Crash Bandicoots, I actually, I don't have my original copies. The only Crash Bandicoots that I have, the ones that I've played on the channel before, are actually based off of the PS3's, they didn't call it a virtual console, the PlayStation Classics thing, because Satish Ram had bought those. I have my copies over at my dad's house in Long Island, and I'm pretty sure that those are so scratched up that my family there actually had to get new games. They were like, this is too scratched up, and I was like, but it's the ones that we had when we was young. So they had to get new versions, and I don't have any of those physically. So that's, and also I'm not interested in paying $20 a pop online or anything around that price unless it's a lot cheaper. So let's see here though. I want to look up some of these game prices I should have been doing that. I said I was doing that while I was talking to you guys, but I got too busy talking to you guys. Also, I would like to note, as I'm looking some of these up, I really do hope that some of these, if they were kind of expensive, I hope them getting announced for the Classic Edition has brought the price down and not in some sick and twisted way brought the price up, because, it's so strange. You think, oh, there's a virtual version of this, and, I'm sure there has been on PS3 and PS4, but still, you would hope that this would bring the price down if any of these are a bit more expensive. Now, I have Tekken 3. So I do have Tekken 3. Let's see here. And by the way, remember that if you're looking up anything on eBay at all, or any price website of any website that's going to sell you something, make sure that you're looking at recently sold if you want to know how much something is going for. Do not go for, in this case, it's literally listed as sold items. Don't go to the general price, because some people try to do that and you don't realize anyone can put anything up at any price. I still have Tekken 3. I could put it up at $1,000. You might be thinking, what's special about it? Nothing. It's Tekken 3. Like, there's nothing. I don't have a special edition. I don't have, because there were some special editions released overseas. I don't have any of, and I'm in the US. I don't have any of those, right? I just have Tekken 3. So from looks of this, Tekken 3 is going for around so 13 to 20 bucks. Yeah, 13 to 20 bucks. Maybe some of them even going for 10 recently. Loose disc, which, oh god, or broken case, going for, it's, most of them are going really, really cheap here. Someone has new but not sealed black label, then I will not be paying your outrageous price. It's new but it's not sealed. What does that even mean? Okay, but either way, the point though is that looking at Tekken right here, Tekken 3 in particular, this one's going for around 10 to 20. So again, just another game that, looking at this 10 to 20, let's even go high. Let's go lowest, 10. So again, that's 10. Final Fantasy VII is also 10, but you know what? Let's also look up Wild Arms as well. Also, as I'm looking this up, I do want to ask you, and I'm talking to all of you here, definitely tell me what games you would like on the PS1 Classic down in the comment section down below, and also tell me, normally I do, scoff at people immediately going for the immediate, just get a Raspberry Pi. But I do want to mention, though, with the games that have been announced thus far, if you have a Raspberry Pi, if you have those games on the Raspberry Pi, or you've looked this up, because I actually haven't looked this up, I have a Raspberry Pi that I haven't really touched much, do these games, these in particular, actually work on the Raspberry Pi? Because I'll tell you this much, with the laptops that I have, even with the desktop that I have that's old but not super old, PS1 games are really hard to play on that. Like, I can play SNES, NES games, Sega Genesis if I wanted to, but when it comes to the specs for PS1 and above, so even like N64 is a little rough. For me, something like this, if I don't have any or many of these games, actually matters to me more, because you know what, funnily enough, I don't have Final Fantasy VII. I have Final Fantasy VIII, which there's so much controversy around Final Fantasy VIII. I'm sorry to laugh, all of you Final Fantasy VIII fans. I haven't played Final Fantasy VIII, but the reason why I'm chuckling is because literally, this was Mars Girl, another YouTuber that I enjoy, that you should definitely follow her on Twitter. She was saying, we've gotten Final Fantasy VII announced for 2 different platforms twice in the same week, but no Final Fantasy VIII. Fucking hilarious. I loved it. So looking at Wild Arms here, we got to make sure to go to sold. Although people are listing it for around 18-ish, but again, we have to go for sold here. So let's see. So going to sold, Wild Arms is currently going for, come on now. No, not Wild Arms 2, and no, not Wild Arms Japan, Sony, PlayStation 1, PS1. Wild Arms, oh good God, that one's going for 40. Oh, good. Okay, wait, no, there's one for 25. Okay, 25's cool too. But yeah, even if we go for as low as 20, again, we're going super low here. That's already 40 out of 100. And good God, not a lot of these are 20. So just announcing Wild Arms, I think for me, is really interesting. It's a good game to bring people in, especially because apparently, from the looks of it, the prices are going up. Now, let's look for some other games here as well. It's funny because there was one game that I have right here that I'm trying to paste because I'm looking at this up on my phone as I'm talking to you guys. There's one racing game that I keep on thinking is Ridge Racer, and it's like, no, that was the Polymega controversy that I also talked about for a Matt Rants on this channel. Jumping Flash, I don't know what this is. So yeah, I have no idea what the hell Jumping Flash is, although we do have to look at sold again. Why is sold not my preferred? Like, literally, I was just looking up stuff with sold, like as sold subsection on eBay, and it took me to the normal ones. It's like, no, I'm looking for sold here. Okay, so jumping, PS1 Japan sealed. Okay, that's a lot of money. That's $50. But for the English version long box, it's 20 from what I'm looking at here. 20, well, number 2 is 20. This is a game that does not seem like there was a lot of them printed, question mark, or people bought it out. I've never heard of Jumping Flash in my life. If you have, please tell me what you know about it, what you like about it. Either way, looking at these online, these long box Jumping Flashes, there's 50, there's 75, there are not a lot that have been sold recently. I don't know what that means. Either way, though, even if there's one for 25 that actually sold in July. It was bid up to 25. So some of these, maybe they're just getting bought because they're at they're literally buy it now is at 50. But the point though is even if we go for, let's say we go for 40. Let's say we go for 40. Immediately now we have 40, we have 20, that's 60. We have Final Fantasy 8 at 70. So we're slowly but surely eating away at the idea that the PlayStation Classic Edition as of right now isn't worth it. Because even putting aside the fact that a PlayStation 1 could cost you even if it was just $5, that's still another, which it definitely isn't. That would still be another, another $5 added on to this entire, to you trying to spend literally $50 here, $40 there, $20 there. So yeah, so looking at Tekken was the one that was, let's say 20. So we have 20 for Tekken, we have 10 for Final Fantasy 7, not 8. Sorry if I said 8 earlier. Final Fantasy 7, so that's already $30 right there, and then $40. I mean, if we went for 30, it's still 60. So yeah, and then Wild Arms was another one that was 20. So yeah, we've already hit 80. So let's look at Ridge Racer Type 4 because I'm very curious about this one. So from the looks of it, this one is really mixed because with Ridge Racer Type 4, either it's going for $21 or it's going for $8. Looking at in the middle here, maybe 17 from Japan. One went for 12, 20, 15, 13. So heck, even if we say that this one's going for 10, again going super low here, we've eaten away at almost all, like the entire price for the PS1 Classic Edition. So, and also some people, speaking of the name of it, people have been saying calling it the PS1 Classic is a little bit, is biting off of the NES Classic and the SNES Classic. And while I totally get where that's coming from, as far as I know, the term classic in context of gaming hasn't been trademarked by Nintendo. If it has, then oh shit, we'll be getting them duking it out, and then the courts will say, well, you know what you have to do? It'll be a judge who's really into gaming. I think the sentencing here is that you two have to come together to finish that Nintendo PlayStation prototype. And both companies are like, what? They're both like, nani? But either way, though, I do think that there's so many pros to this, but the huge con, the one that would really deter me from buying this, I mean, I would say on principle, if I didn't have a cord myself, so we'll have to wait until not only they announce more games, but also announce what kind of AC adapter specifically, like what the specs are for this, so I know which AC adapter to use. But I would be frustrated if they were selling like a $30 adapter to the side, because that, even though their thought was, I'm sure, if we include the AC adapter, it might be a bit too expensive, but it's kind of like, we don't want to make this any more than $100. But if they're going to sell it for $30 on the side, it's like, no, you're pulling an Apple. You're trying to pull a fast one on us. And personally, I'm not a fan of that, because it's a bit different than a headphone jack, even with Apple. Because with Apple, at least, even though I dislike what they did with that, at least it's funny. Some people say, but you need headphones so you can hear what's going on with your phone if you want to use it for music or whatever. And it's like, fair, but there still are speakers as far as I know. As far as I know that, the phone, I forgot which one it was, which iPhone, the one that didn't come with a headphone jack, I'm pretty sure there was still speakers in the phone though, right? If there were no speakers, then okay, never mind. This is 1-to-1 situation. But when it comes to this, because there's no AC adapter included, it's like you can't even turn your fucking system on. So that is bullshit, do not get me wrong. But I do think that if the specs are the same, or rather if the voltage and all that stuff is the same as, PS4, PS3, or heck, even if it would be funny if I had to bust out my PS1, my PS1 AC adapter. It's like, I don't know if this is like, I don't know if this is a Circle of Life thing where I'm just holding up the mini classic, the PS1 classic Circle of Life style. I don't know if that's what it is, but either way, other than that big thing, it is a big thing, to be fair, I'm not going to try to minimize it, it's a big deal. Other than that big deal, the fact is, when it comes to the games themselves, you are most definitely saving money by getting this, clearly, right off the bat, even though we don't even know what the other 20 games are. Well, 15 games, rather. But these 5 games I've said thus far, they are included, Matt. But either way, though, as you can tell, I'm sure you guys can tell, I'm really hyped about this. I'm really, really, really excited. I don't know. So here's the interesting thing, though. I haven't mentioned this thus far. You guys have probably looked it up already, though, as I'm, fangasming everywhere. This is coming out on December 3rd, which is obviously right around for the holiday season. Marketing, wink, wink. But what's strange to me is that, okay, so it says, visit PlayStation.com for more details on regional availability and stay tuned to the blog, but they don't have a pre-order up yet. And we're already at the end of September. So I'm a little confused, because you want people to, like, unless they're saying, because maybe they're worried that there'll be an SNES Classic debacle again. So maybe they're just going to say, hey, flock to your local GameStops, nerds, or other local retailers, nerds. And if they do that, then I'll say, thank you, Sony, and I'll go and I'll buy it. But I do wonder. I just it's really frustrating because again, it's funny, even if the rest of the library is trash, if it's stuff that I don't have, that I haven't experienced yet, your trash might be my treasure. So I'd be interested in checking it out. But at the same time, this AC adapter thing, I cannot get over it. Maybe you can, maybe you already have. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below. We're gonna wrap up this episode of Matt Rants with happy thoughts, because we could be getting stuff like Klonoa, we could be getting stuff like Spyro, stuff like Crash. I don't think we'll be getting that Square Enix fighting game. What was that called? Earnhards. We won't be getting that. But there'll be very interesting things that could come to this. Will we get Pepsi Man? My God, if we get Pepsi Man. But we won't. But if this is moddable, then for me, this might actually be one of the coolest things I'd have in my collection, only because, as far as I know, PS1 emulation on the Raspberry Pi is spotty, and PlayStation 1 emulation does not work on anything that I own in this house tech-wise when it comes to PCs or consoles, when it comes to laptops. So if I could mod this thing, that'd be pretty cool. But again, tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you all so much for listening in and watching this as always. Remember, you can actually get these in audio format over at our Patreon, patreon.com/GGProductions. I've forgotten to say that for a while, but it will also be in the description box down below. Thank you all, love you all, take care, and tune in next time for another Matt Rants or something completely different. Alright guys, so see ya.